episode of Blowing Smoke with Twister Rico is sponsored by Moonbeam Cafe, located at 636 Allegheny River Boulevard in Oakmont, PA, just outside the city limits of Pittsburgh, PA. Moonbeam Cafe is a traditional Roman Italian-style cafe famous for their delectable biscottis and espresso-based drinks. We strive to handcraft our drinks with only the highest quality ingredients and doing so with a big smile on our face. Our main mission is not only to create the best coffee in Pittsburgh, but to spread as much kindness as possible. One of our customers once said, quote, "Moonbeam Cafe is the only place in the city that serves a side of kindness with every cup," unquote. And that really sums us up. Please follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Moonbeam Cafe to get a glimpse of what we do every day. Stay magical and caffeinated. Welcome to Blowing Smoke with Twisted Rico. I'm your host, Steve Ricardo, coming to you from the New Alliance Music and Art Complex in Union Square, Somerville, Mass. We just started our show off with the tune Wasteland from the album Why Play Around from the Boston-based metal band Wargasm. Wargasm featured Rich Spielberg on guitar, Bob Mayo on bass and vocals, and drummer Barry Spielberg on drums. I recently reached out to Bob Mayo, who sent me a nice package which included the reissued version of Why Play Around. So we're going to try and get Bob to come on the show. We couldn't work it out for this time, but I definitely want to get him on at some point to talk about Wargasm because their story is really interesting. At one time, they were one of the biggest metal bands in Boston. They opened for a ton of touring bands, including Slayer, Megadeth, Fates Warning, Nuclear Assault, Anthrax, etc. The liner notes on the reissue call out the poor handling of the band by their label, when they were originally signed to the NYC Rock Hotel imprint, and then they were passed on to Profile Records. Bob holds nothing back regarding the way the band was treated by the label, and I just want to share the last paragraph from the liner notes with you. I'm going to read them right off the CD here. Profile did absolutely nothing for us. When I say nothing, I mean nothing. We had gotten off to a great start, but without any label support, we knew we'd be able to move to the next level. Rather than give Profile a second album that they would do absolutely nothing with, we decided to fight them to be released from our contract. This proved difficult. They had no reason to keep us. Without promoting us, they ensured we wouldn't make them any money. They just couldn't be bothered to respond to us in any way whatsoever. It took 3 years before they finally let us go. By then, any momentum achieved through this album was depleted. And suddenly it was the 90s and the music scene had drastically changed. And that's when things got really ugly. Bob Mayo, July 2015. Okay, the liner notes are really long, and I only took the last paragraph. Basically tells you about the rise of the band and what they went through and how it ended, which, as I just shared with you, wasn't very pleasant. You know, we've heard stories like this before. If you end up on the wrong label and in the wrong situation, things can go south fast. I personally saw this many times with my own eyes at several of the labels that I worked at. In fact, I once referred to Enigma Records as, quote, kind of like a shoe factory, unquote, in an interview. I'm sure whoever saw that wasn't happy to see that, but it's true. I remember we would put out 8 to 10 releases a month, and with a small staff, it was nearly impossible to give every one of these records the attention that they deserved. It was much worse at major labels, although I must say A&M Records was very good at paying attention to all its releases, and I'm not just saying that because I worked there. We just had really good product managers who focused on their releases and made sure someone in marketing, promotion, and publicity would get involved and give a push to even the smallest band on the label. I'll give you an example right now. Damn the Machine, okay? Brian Huttenhauer, the A&R guy that signed Damn the Machine, was on a real roll at the time due to his signings of Soundgarden, Extreme, Gin Blossoms. He did the Temple of the Dog record. So naturally, whoever he signed next was going to get the attention of the staff. And I'm thinking of 2 bands in particular, Paw and Damn the Machine, which I'm going to talk to you about right now. Damn the Machine made a great record, and they had a big name star in the band. The original Megadeth guitar player, Chris Poland. So everyone kind of knew who Chris was in the metal world. But here was the problem. No one at A&M really knew how to market metal because they did not have a history with metal, okay, at all. So although they were not known as a metal label, Soundgarden may have had an appeal with the metal crowd, but they weren't really a full-on metal band. In fact, people refer to them as a grunge band, which supposedly killed metal. In the words of people in the early 90s, Nirvana and bands like that came along, killed metal. Not necessarily true, but that's the way history proved it to be. So there were basically like two people at the label that knew anything about metal. Guess what? Since I had previously worked for labels like Enigma, Roadrunner, and one of the best metal labels in the world, Metal Blade, they asked me to go out on the road with the band. So we did what we could, and the band had a successful tour opening for Voivod, the great Canadian metal band, but nothing was happening on radio. When I say nothing, I mean nothing really relevant. Nothing on press or radio. In retail, did okay with mom and pop stores, but not really good. So they were dropped after one album. Sharing this story with you because I can relate to what Wargasm went through. You know, they're not the first band that ever happened to. You know, maybe that wasn't a great example, at least, you know, because they had me. Some bands had no one besides the A&R guy that signed them, and in most cases, after a record was made, the A&R guy wasn't around, had no involvement except to get the praise for signing the band. What that's like, too. That example was A&M Records. It probably wasn't the best example. I'll give you a better one. It was even worse than that at other labels. Atlantic Records was one of the worst. I found that out when I was working at Third Stone, and they promised to do this and do that for our bands, and honestly, in a lot of ways, they sucked. To this day, I believe the Neighborhoods did everything they had to do to get a push from Atlantic Records. We told the band that Atlantic promised tour support if they got a good tour. Their manager, David Robinson, got them on the Tin Machine tour. And if you don't remember who Tin Machine was, well, David Bowie was in that band. I know you know who he is. They were a very popular band. Atlantic didn't even blink. I ended up getting in a huge argument with everyone and had to leave the label because of that fiasco. So I feel for bands like Wargasm who never really got their shot. And I could give you a long list of bands that were signed and shafted, mostly because there was just not enough staff to get the job done. Or maybe there was just too many posers that got jobs at these major labels and bigger independent labels that were just too cool to promote some bands. It's sad, but it's a true observation of the way things were. Are things better now because there's no more fully staffed record labels? Maybe, maybe not. Of course, I wish there were still fully staffed labels. Maybe I'd still be working for a record label right now if there was. Who knows? But aside from what has happened with COVID, the new reality is that it's gotten to the point where no one buys music anymore, and the bands have to rely on touring and selling merch and getting that elusive licensing deal, which is they're very hard to come by. I've worked with some bands that we've gotten licensing deals, but there's a lot of competition. Some people seem to like it better this way. It's hard to convince an old school guy like myself of that, but in some ways, I think it's great that the artist has full control of their music and their career, and that's that. All right, we're going to play another song here. This is a great song from the band Reverse. This is called Red Drum.
Sitting on the sidewalk waiting for the police. Drop my matches in gasoline. Read my message.
That was Red Drum from the band Reverse's album What's Your Problem, which was released in 2019. The band featured Ian Kennedy, guitars, vocals, Mike Quinn, bass, background vocals, Mike Peel, drums. Recorded by John Taft, Ian Kennedy, and Mike Quinn at the Old New Alliance Studios in Cambridge, Mass. And it was mixed by Matthew Ellard. Mastered by our very own Nick Z. I actually worked with a lot of these guys in the past, Taft, Ellard, and Nick Z. All really good. Matthew Ellard was there when little Steven Van Zandt, I don't really like to mention his name, but I have to. When he produced this Charm song over at Q Division, Matthew was the engineer. Good guy. There's a sad part to this story because, Reverse lost their gifted guitarist, singer Ian Kennedy in 2018. Sad to see him go at such a young age. I have to say, though, this record is one of the best records to come out of Boston in years. It's a really, really, really good record. You know what we're going to do right now? Herb, are you there? Are you around?
Hey.
Hi, Herb. Herb's going to pull a name out of the Altoids can, and we're going to do the Rock and Roll Road Stories. We don't have Dia here to give her big announcement that we're going to do this, but he's going to pick a name out of the city, and the way it's going to work is I am going to talk about the first things that come to my mind. Is that how it works, Herb?
That's right.
And so you're going to help me out and pick a good city that I'm going to actually remember. So my memory will remember what happened. At least,
I think that the story will be better if you have troubles remembering it,
you.
But
Yeah,
here we go. Okay, on today's session of Rock and Roll Road Stories, we have the great, the only, we're talking about Milwaukee.
Milwaukee. Wow, that's really funny because I was talking about Damn the Machine before, and I remember being in Milwaukee with Damn the Machine. If you don't know Milwaukee, it's like beer town, It's like beer, and more beer. Woo. In fact, one day, I think I was with Damn the Machine, but I was also there with Pa, and I was there a few other bands. Some of the bands I go on tour with, I can't remember what happened. Pa was one of them because... we just partied a little too heavy. We were on the road. But I remember I went to a baseball game. I think it was Fulton County Stadium. They might have a new stadium now. And they were serving these frozen rum drinks. At 1 o'clock in the afternoon, I started with the frozen rum drinks. And so by the time we went to some record stores. I think Mainstream Records was the name of the store. Took the band down there. I was pretty wasted by the end of that trip, but I do have good memories of Milwaukee. It's a cool Midwestern city, and that was a good. Let's do another one, Herb.
Let's do another one.
Yeah, because I don't have really a lot to say about Milwaukee, but I did like it there.
All right, the second pick. Now you're gonna like this one, Richmond.
Richmond, Virginia. Yeah, I am going to like this one because the first thing that comes to my mind when I was in Richmond, Virginia, I was with a band called Jackopierce. I've talked to them before when I worked for A&M. And they had a TV show appearance in the morning. It was like 11 in the morning. So I went and generally I would go to a hotel, get the band, bring them to their event. So they did their TV show thing. Take my glasses off for this story. And we picked them up, and that was the good news. The bad news, or good news, I guess you could say, was there was a strip bar across the street from the TV station. So I looked at them, they looked at me, and 1 o'clock in the afternoon, let's go. We go to the strip bar, and I'm not lying at all. There was a stripper there, name's Christine. We kind of locked in. We got locked in with each other. And those guys were like, she likes you. Well, we ended up meeting later that night, and we actually ended up hanging out in Jamaica a little while after that.
Oh, wow.
Christine Ash, that's not her real name, so I can say it. That's her, stage name. And that's the one, aside from hanging out with Jackopierce, they had a really good show there. Richmond's a funny town because it's kind of half the north and half the south. kind of a lot of Virginia's like that, you know? It's like 1 minute you feel like you're with a bunch of Yankees, and the next minute there's the Confederate flag hanging. It may have changed a little bit now, but that was in the mid 90s. But every time I went to Virginia, actually, I had a good time. I remember going to Virginia Beach, which for some shows. I went to Charlottesville, which is where the University of Virginia is located, and then Richmond. Oh, I forgot about one thing that I love about Richmond, the Jefferson Hotel. I stayed there like twice. Really, really good hotel. I almost feel like I talked about this on a past show. I remember bringing up the Jefferson Hotel, and Christine, you know, I don't know where you are, but I would love to know where you are, actually. I mean, we had a lot of fun together, and we met, you know, you can actually meet someone in a strip bar and have somewhat of a relationship. As I did.
Wow.
And yeah, we had fun in Jamaica. Jamaica was great. I used to go down there a lot to the grill back when I worked for labels. It was my key vacation spot. Get off the plane, big, huge bag of herb in your hands in like 2 seconds. Beer, you buy beers for $1, Red Stripes. You drive an hour and a half from Montego Bay to Negril. You stop along the way, smoke the weed, drink the beer. Once you get there, it's just one big party, man.
Oh,
I
man.
know you didn't pull Jamaica out of that can, but sorry.
They're all connected. They're all interconnected, right?
Interconnected.
Yeah.
Yeah, Christine connected.
Nice.
All right, let's see. I got a couple other things. I just want to let everyone know before we go that the Swedish doom metal band and one of my favorite bands, Draconian, have a new record entitled Under the Godless Veil. It's coming out in October. I'm really excited about this record. I usually don't get into those doom bands, but this band is really, really good. I've liked them since they first came out, which I think was around 2004. You can get more info on that record and other stuff at draconianofficial.com. And the band also has an Instagram page called Draconian_official, at Draconian_official. Also would like to thank JLS Design for co-sponsoring this show along with the Moonbeam Cafe, who we talked about earlier. JLS Design does custom screen printing and embroidery. Great place to get t-shirts, hats, hoodies, masks, etc. In fact, they made our Blowing Smoke with Twisted Rico t-shirts and masks, which are both very popular. In fact, I'm going to have more t-shirts. I'm getting them in a couple days. They're really light blue. They're mostly girls' t-shirts because, believe it or not, I've had a bigger demand from the women from the shirts than the men. Although I do see a few guys wearing. You got a shirt, right, Herb? Yeah, good. We'll get you a blue one.
Wore it this last week to work.
You wore it to work, and did they say who are those two weirdos on that shirt?
No, they bitched me out because I wasn't wearing a collar shirt.
Good reason to get bitched out. You can reach JLS Design. JLSDesignPrinting.com. You can reach them at JLSDesignSales@gmail.com. If you contact JLS and tell them Blowing Smoke with Twisted Rico sent you, you'll get a 10% discount. Nothing wrong with a discount. It's really important that we support these mom and pop stores now more than ever. The mom and pop and independents. Places like JLS, Moonbeam Cafe, Baby Loves Tacos, Dark Horse Pub, etc. These fine establishments need us now more than ever as we make our way through these difficult times, and they are difficult. Before leaving, I want to thank our engineer, Dorchester's own, Herb Morsiglio. Ow! Herb's going to be gone for a little while. He's going to be handling the election. He's in charge of the entire Massachusetts election or something like that, so we're going to miss him. I'll be doing some shows with some other engineers, but I can assure you it won't be the same. I want to also thank all our patrons who contribute monthly to the Blowing Smoke with Twisted Rico podcast and helps us keep going. Kevin, Ellie, Maria, Chris W., Heather, Sue K., Matt, Dave, Brian, Benjamin, Lee, Chad, Christopher, Kim, Hector, and Kelly. If you want to help support the show, just go to patreon.com/Twisted Rico. For only $1 stinking a month, you can support this show. You can contact me at any time at twistedrico@gmail.com or follow the Instagram page at Twisted Rico, or our Twitter page at Blowing Smoke BS. There's also Blowing Smoke with Twisted Rico Facebook page, and you can find some of our shows on YouTube as well. This is Blowing Smoke with Twisted Rico, and I'm your host, Steev Ricardo. Till the next time we say goodbye, keep the rock and roll alive, and we love you, Busy Phillips.